Vrex-Nine had seen terror in 1,000 different forms across 17 star systems. The 8-foot-tall apex predator from Catharian Prime had witnessed entire fleets surrender at the mere mention of his name. His razor-sharp claws could slice through titanium like butter. His bone-crushing jaw could snap a grown Altarian in half. And his midnight black exoskeleton had deflected plasma blasts that would vaporize lesser beings. So when the cargo manifest listed one human juvenile among the latest batch of prisoners destined for the gladiatorial pits of Mordak Station, Vrex assumed it would be just another routine intimidation session. Maybe a quick scare, perhaps a demonstration of his superior strength, and then off to the holding cells with the rest of the soon-to-be dead. He was spectacularly wrong. The transport vessel Crimson Reaper had docked 3 standard hours ago, and Vrex had been savoring the anticipation. Nothing quite compared to that delicious moment when a new species first laid eyes on him. The involuntary trembling, the rapid breathing, the way their primitive fight-or-flight responses kicked in, usually settling firmly on flight before realizing there was nowhere to run. Warden Vrex buzzed the mechanical voice of his assistant, Pip-7, a floating spherical droid with more processing power than most planetary governments. The human specimen has been placed in Intimidation Chamber 12 as requested. Excellent, Vrex rumbled, his voice carrying that bone-deep resonance that had made hardened space pirates soil themselves. Let us see what this human is made of. The corridors of Mordak Station stretched out like the belly of some massive space whale, all industrial gray and flickering emergency lighting. Prisoners' cells lined both sides, each containing beings from across the galaxy who had somehow found themselves on the wrong side of Galactic Council law. Or in most cases, the wrong side of someone with enough credits to make law irrelevant. Vrex's massive talons clicked against the metal flooring as he approached Chamber 12. Through the reinforced viewing port, he could see the human juvenile sitting cross-legged on the floor, apparently engaged in some sort of primitive ritual involving small, colorful objects. Fascinating, Pip-7 observed, hovering beside Vrex's shoulder. Initial scans indicate the subject is engaging in what appears to be recreational activity. Vrex's 4 yellow eyes narrowed. In his extensive experience, prey species typically spent their first few hours in captivity doing one of 3 things: crying, praying to whatever deities they worshipped, or desperately searching for escape routes. This was the first time he had encountered a prisoner who seemed to be playing "Open the chamber," Vrex commanded. The massive door hissed open with a pneumatic wheeze, and Vrex stepped inside, his full imposing presence filling the doorway. He drew himself up to his most intimidating posture, spread his arms wide to display his natural weapons, and let out his signature roar, a sound that had literally caused 3 different species to evolve better hearing just to detect his approach from farther away. The human juvenile looked up and smiled. "Oh, wow," the small creature exclaimed, scrambling to its feet with surprising agility. "You are absolutely amazing. Are those real claws? How many eyes do you have? Is that an exoskeleton or really tough skin? Can you see in different spectrums? Do you molt? Are you cold-blooded or warm-blooded? Wait, do those categories even apply to your species?" Vrex stood there, mouth agape, his intimidating roar dying in his throat like a deflated balloon. In 2 centuries of professional intimidation, no one had ever responded to his terrifying presence with what could only be described as enthusiasm. "I am Vrex-Nine," he managed to growl, though with considerably less menace than intended. "Terror of the Outer Rim, destroyer of fleets, devourer of—" "That's so cool," the human interrupted, bouncing slightly on its feet. "I'm Maya Thompson. I'm 7 years old. Well, 7 3/4 if we're being precise, and I've never met anyone like you before. Are you going to eat me? Because Mom always said I should ask before assuming someone's dietary preferences." Vrex felt something he had not experienced in decades. Complete bewilderment. "I what?" My dietary preferences, Maya repeated slowly, as if speaking to someone with limited cognitive function. Like, some species are omnivores, some are herbivores, some are carnivores. I'm guessing you might be a carnivore based on those impressive teeth, but I don't want to stereotype. That would be rude. PIP-7 floated closer, sensors whirring. Warden, I believe the human juvenile is attempting to engage you in conversation. I can see that. Vrex snapped, then immediately felt guilty for his harsh tone when Maya's face fell slightly. Oh, I'm sorry, Maya said quietly. Did I say something wrong? Mom says I talk too much sometimes. She says my curiosity is going to get me in trouble someday. The child's expression grew momentarily sad. I guess she was right. Something twisted in Rex's chest, an unfamiliar sensation that he could not immediately identify. Was it sympathy? Impossible. He was a predator, an apex hunter. He did not feel sympathy for prey. You are not in trouble, he found himself saying, his voice gentler than it had been in living memory. I was merely surprised by your reaction. Maya's face immediately brightened again. Really? Most adults don't like it when I ask lots of questions. They say things like, children should be seen and not heard, or curiosity killed the cat, or Maya, for the love of all that's holy, please just eat your vegetables without asking about their cellular structure. Despite himself, Vrex felt the corners of his mouth twitch upward. Among his species, curiosity was considered the highest virtue. Young Catharians who asked questions were praised and encouraged, not silenced. What were you doing when I arrived? He asked, gesturing toward the colorful objects scattered on the floor. Oh, those. Maya's eyes lit up like miniature stars. Those are my building blocks. I was making a space station. Well, trying to anyway. It's harder than it looks because I don't have enough connecting pieces, and the artificial gravity here is different from Earth gravity, so everything keeps falling over. But that's okay. Failure is just a learning opportunity, right? Vrex stared at the small construction. Even incomplete, he could recognize the basic design principles of a functional orbital platform. The child had intuitively grasped concepts that took most species decades of technological development to understand. You built this? He asked, crouching down to examine the structure more closely. At his full height, he towered over Maya, but crouching brought him down to merely twice her size. Uh-huh. I want to be a space engineer when I grow up. I want to design ships that can go really, really fast and explore places no one has ever been before. Mom says humans aren't supposed to go to space yet, but I think that's just because no one has asked nicely. Vrex picked up one of the building blocks, turning it over in his massive claws with surprising delicacy. These are quite sophisticated for toys. They're not toys, Maya protested, then caught herself. I mean, they are toys, but they're educational toys. There's a difference. These ones are designed to teach basic engineering principles and spatial reasoning. I've built 17 different spacecraft designs, 23 architectural structures, and one really cool robot that could walk before the batteries died. Show me, Vrex said, settling himself on the floor with a resonant thud. For the next hour, Maya enthusiastically demonstrated her various construction techniques, explaining the principles behind each design with the kind of passionate intensity that Vrex usually only saw in master engineers. The child's knowledge was impressive, but more than that, her approach to problem-solving was remarkably sophisticated. When a structure failed, she didn't get frustrated. She analyzed the failure, identified the weak points, and tried again with improvements. You know, Maya said during a brief pause as she reconstructed a collapsed tower, you're a lot nicer than you first appeared. When you came in all scary and roaring, I thought maybe you were one of those people who think being intimidating makes them important. But you're actually really good at listening. Vrex felt that strange sensation in his chest again. I am a predator, he said, though the words lacked conviction. I am supposed to be intimidating. Oh, you definitely are, Maya assured him cheerfully. Super intimidating, like movie monster level scary. But being intimidating doesn't mean you can't also be nice, right? Mom says the strongest people are usually the gentlest because they don't have to prove anything to anyone. Your mother sounds wise. Maya's expression grew sad again. She is. I hope she's okay. The bad people took me while she was at work, and I don't think she knows where I am. The protective instinct that rose in Vrex's chest was so sudden and powerful, it nearly knocked him backward. Someone had taken this remarkable child from her family. Someone had frightened and confused her, separated her from those who cared for her. Someone was going to pay. Maya, he said carefully, who brought you here? I don't know their names, she replied, focusing intently on her building blocks as if the conversation had become too difficult to handle while making eye contact. They had big ships and scary masks. They said humans were good for something called gladiatorial entertainment, and that I would probably last longer than most because I was small and might be amusing to watch get scared. Vrex's claws extended involuntarily, scoring deep gouges in the metal floor. The gladiatorial pits. They had brought a 7-year-old child to the gladiatorial pits. Hey, are you okay? Maya asked, looking up with concern. You look angry. Did I say something wrong? No, little one, Vrex said, retracting his claws and forcing his voice to remain calm. You said nothing wrong. I am angry, but not at you. Oh, good. I was worried I'd gotten you in trouble or something. Adults are always getting in trouble when they talk to me too long. Mom says it's because I'm precocious, which I think means too smart for my own good, but in a nice way. Vrex stood, his decision crystallizing with the clarity of a supernova. Maya, would you like to see more of the station? Really? You mean I can leave this room? Maya scrambled to her feet, gathering her building blocks with practiced efficiency. That would be amazing. I've been wondering about the architecture of this place. From what I can tell from the vibrations and acoustic properties, it's a rotating structure, probably wheel-shaped, with artificial gravity generated by centrifugal force. Am I right? You are correct, Vrex said, opening the chamber door. How did you determine that? Well, the gravity feels consistent, but not quite natural, and I can feel a very subtle motion if I pay attention. Plus, the way sounds echo suggests we're in a curved space, rather than a linear one. It's actually really clever engineering. As they walked through the corridors, Pip-7 hovering behind them, Vrex found himself seeing his domain through Maya's eyes, where he had always seen the cold efficiency of a functional prison. Maya saw engineering marvels and clever solutions to complex problems. She asked questions about everything: the lighting systems, the air recycling, the structural support beams, the artificial gravity generators. Other prisoners pressed against their cell doors as they passed, some calling out in various languages, others simply staring in amazement at the sight of the station's most feared enforcer walking calmly alongside a small human child, who was chattering enthusiastically about pressure differentials and load-bearing calculations. Warden, Pip-7 buzzed quietly. Perhaps we should return the human to its cell. The other prisoners are becoming curious. Let them be curious, Vrex replied. Maya, what do you think of the observation deck? They had arrived at one of Vrex's favorite spots, a transparent aluminum viewing port that offered a spectacular view of the local star system. 3 planets were visible from this angle, along with a small asteroid field that glittered like scattered diamonds against the cosmic backdrop. Maya pressed her face against the transparent surface, her breath fogging the material. Oh, wow, she whispered. It's so beautiful. Look at those orbital mechanics. The way that asteroid field is distributed suggests it used to be a planet, doesn't it? Probably torn apart by tidal forces when it got too close to the star. Very good, Vrex said, genuinely impressed. Most adults require extensive education to understand such concepts. Mom got me lots of books about space when I told her I wanted to be an engineer. She said education was the most important thing she could give me. Maya turned away from the viewport, looking up at Vrex with those bright, curious eyes. Can I ask you a personal question? You may ask. I cannot guarantee I will answer. Do you have a family? Like, People who care about you and worry when you're away. The question hit Vrex like a plasma torpedo to the chest. Family. He had not thought about his birth clutch in decades. Catharians were typically solitary creatures once they reached adulthood, but they maintained loose connections with their siblings and occasionally visited the communal nesting grounds where they had been hatched. Yes, I have siblings. We do not communicate frequently, but... He trailed off, realizing he had not contacted any of them in over 20 standard years. That's nice, Maya said simply. I bet they're proud of you. You seem really good at your job, even if your job involves being scary to people. Maya, Vrex said slowly, what if I told you that being scary to people was not a good job? The child considered this seriously. Well, I guess it depends on why you're being scary. If you're being scary to protect people who can't protect themselves, that seems like a good reason. But if you're being scary just because you can, or because it makes you feel powerful, that doesn't seem very nice. Out of the mouths of cubs, Vrex thought. When had he last asked himself why he did what he did? When had he last considered whether his actions served any purpose beyond demonstrating his own strength? What would you say? He asked carefully. If I told you I was considering a career change? Maya's face lit up like a small sun. Really? That's so exciting. What would you want to do instead? I am not certain. Perhaps something that involved protecting rather than threatening. That sounds perfect for you. You're already really good at making people feel safe. Well, you made me feel safe anyway. After the first few minutes when I realized you weren't actually going to eat me. They spent another hour at the observation deck, with Maya pointing out various celestial phenomena, and Vrex finding himself genuinely engaged by her boundless curiosity and infectious enthusiasm. It occurred to him that this was the first conversation he had enjoyed in decades. When they finally returned to the prison levels, Maya walking trustingly beside his towering form, Vrex made a decision that would change both their lives forever. Maya, he said, stopping outside her chamber, would you like to stay with me instead of returning to this cell? You mean like permanently? Maya asked, tilting her head in a gesture that reminded Vrex of a curious bird. But I'm a prisoner, aren't I? Don't prisoners have to stay in prison? Sometimes, Vrex said. The people in charge of prisons realize they have made mistakes. And you're in charge. I am in charge of this section, yes. Maya was quiet for a moment, considering. What about my mom? I can't just abandon her. She'll be so worried. We will find a way to contact her, Vrex promised, surprised by how easily the commitment came. And perhaps we can arrange for you both to be together again. Really? You would do that for me? I would do that for you. Maya smiled, and Vrex realized that smile was worth more than all the fear and respect his reputation had ever earned him. Okay then, she said simply. I'd like that very much. As Vrex led Maya toward his personal quarters, already mentally composing the resignation letter he would send to the Galactic Corrections Authority, he reflected on the day's events. He had entered that chamber intending to terrify a child. Instead, the child had somehow managed to terrify him, not with threats or violence, but with something far more powerful, the possibility of becoming someone better than he had ever imagined he could be. Behind them, PIP-7 followed, sensors recording everything, already calculating the massive administrative headache this decision would create. It was going to be worth it. 3 weeks had passed since Maya Thompson had turned Vrex-Nine's world upside down, and the changes were nothing short of revolutionary. What had started as a simple intimidation session had evolved into the most complex logistical nightmare in Mordak Station's history. And somehow, Vrex had never been happier. Warden, the Galactic Corrections Authority is requesting your immediate response to their 15th inquiry regarding unauthorized prisoner relocation, PIP-7 announced, floating into Vrex's quarters with what could only be described as mechanical exasperation. They seem particularly concerned about your latest report describing the subject as undergoing intensive rehabilitation through educational enrichment programs. Vrex looked up from where he was sitting cross-legged on the floor, carefully helping Maya construct what she had declared would be the most awesome space elevator ever built with building blocks. His massive claws, designed for rending and tearing, were delicately maneuvering tiny plastic components with the precision of a master surgeon. "Tell them," Vrex rumbled, "that the rehabilitation program is showing remarkable progress and requires continued observation." "You can't keep stalling forever," Pip-7 pointed out. "Eventually, someone is going to notice that your dangerous prisoner is currently teaching you about tensile strength calculations while eating ice cream for breakfast." "It's not ice cream," Maya corrected cheerfully, not looking up from her construction project. "It's frozen yogurt with educational value. The crystallization patterns demonstrate phase transitions, and the different flavors help with sensory development. Plus, it's delicious." Vrex had learned not to question Maya's ability to turn anything into a learning experience. Yesterday, she had convinced him that watching old Earth movies was cultural anthropology research. The day before that, her exploration of the station's ventilation system had been applied physics field study. Her capacity for transforming mischief into education was genuinely impressive. "Besides," Maya added, "Vrex promised he's working on the mom situation." The mom situation. Those 3 words had become the central focus of Vrex's existence. Finding one human female named Jessica Thompson on a planet of 9 billion humans had proven more challenging than conquering entire star systems. Earth's communication networks were primitive, their bureaucracy was labyrinthine, and their concept of individual privacy made intelligence gathering nearly impossible. "Any progress on that front?" Pip-7 asked. "Some," Vrex admitted. "I have made contact with a freelance information broker who specializes in human affairs. He claims to have located her." Maya's head snapped up so fast Vrex was concerned she might injure herself. "Really? You found Mom?" "Possibly," Vrex said carefully. "I do not wish to raise false hopes. But yes, there is a Jessica Thompson in the city of Portland who filed a missing person report for her daughter approximately 4 weeks ago. The description matches." Maya's eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling so brightly it was like looking at a small sun. "Can we call her? Can we tell her I'm okay? She must be so scared." Vrex's heart, assuming he had one, clenched at the raw emotion in the child's voice. Over the past 3 weeks, Maya had been remarkably resilient about her situation, maintaining her curiosity and enthusiasm even while separated from everything familiar. But he could see the moments when homesickness crept in, usually late at night when she thought no one was watching. "I am working on establishing communication," he said. "However, there are complications." "What kind of complications?" Maya asked, settling back against Vrex's side with the casual trust that still amazed him. 3 weeks ago, beings twice her size fled from his mere presence. Now, this tiny human used him as furniture. "Well," Vrex began carefully, "officially, I am a corrections officer for the Galactic Authority. Unofficially, I have been operating somewhat outside normal protocols." "You mean you've been breaking rules to help me?" Maya translated. "I prefer to think of it as creative interpretation of existing regulations." Pip-7 made a sound that might have been mechanical laughter. "Creative interpretation. Is that what we're calling kidnapping prisoners and filing false reports now?" "I did not kidnap anyone," Vrex protested. "Maya chose to stay with me. After you illegally removed her from her designated cell and failed to process her through standard intake procedures," Pip-7 pointed out. "The fact that she's happy about it doesn't make it legal." Maya looked between them with growing concern. "Are you going to get in trouble because of me?" "Possibly," Vrex admitted. "The Galactic Authority tends to be quite rigid about proper procedures." "Then we need to fix this," Maya said with the kind of determination that had already gotten them both into so much trouble. "What would make it legal for me to stay with you?" Vrex considered this. "Technically, if you were not classified as a prisoner, there would be no regulations preventing our association. How do I stop being a prisoner?" You would need to be officially released, which requires either completion of your sentence, successful appeal of your conviction, or, Vrex paused, struck by a sudden thought, or adoption by a registered guardian. PIP-7's sensors whirred frantically. Warden, please tell me you are not considering what I think you are considering. Adoption, Maya repeated thoughtfully. Like, you would be my dad? The word dad hit Vrex like a plasma cannon blast. He had never considered parenthood. Catharians typically raised their young communally, with minimal individual attachment. The concept of becoming solely responsible for another being's welfare, of being called dad, was both terrifying and oddly appealing. Vrex found himself unusually tongue-tied. It would be a legal arrangement primarily. I would not presume to replace your actual father. I don't have a dad, Maya said simply. Well, I must have had one biologically speaking, but Mom raised me by herself. She always said family isn't about biology. It's about who shows up for you when it matters. Vrex felt that familiar chest-tightening sensation again. And you believe I have shown up for you? Are you kidding? Maya laughed. You gave up your scary reputation, broke a bunch of rules, risked your job, and spent 3 weeks teaching me about alien cultures while I taught you about human engineering. Plus, you let me redecorate your quarters with my drawings and didn't even complain when I accidentally broke your favorite intimidation trophy. Vrex glanced around his quarters, which had indeed been transformed by Maya's presence. His collection of weapons and terrifying artifacts now shared space with colorful drawings of spaceships, mathematical equations written in crayon on the walls, and several impressive architectural models constructed from building blocks. The intimidation trophy, a crystallized scream from his first victim, had been replaced by Maya's attempt at sculpting his likeness out of recycled food containers. It was objectively terrible and absolutely precious. So yes, Maya continued, I think you've definitely shown up for me. And honestly, having a dad who's an 8-foot-tall apex predator sounds pretty awesome. Nobody would ever try to bully me at school. This is insane, PIP-7 muttered. The paperwork alone will be a nightmare. Interspecies adoption protocols, guardian fitness evaluations, cultural compatibility assessments. But it would work? Vrex asked. Theoretically, yes, but Vrex, you would be legally responsible for a human child. Do you understand what that means? Feeding, clothing, education, medical care, emotional support, for the next 11 years minimum. 11 years, Maya piped up. More like 15 if I go to college. Maybe 20 if I decide to get advanced degrees. Oh, and you'd have to meet Mom and convince her you're not going to accidentally eat me or teach me bad habits. The magnitude of what he was considering began to sink in. Vrex had spent 2 centuries as a solitary predator, responsible only for himself. The idea of caring for another being, especially one as fragile and complex as a human child, should have been overwhelming. Instead, it felt like the first truly important decision he had ever made. I accept, he said simply. Maya launched herself at him with such enthusiasm that she nearly knocked him over despite their size difference. Really? You really want to be my dad? I really want to be your dad, Vrex confirmed, wrapping his arms carefully around the small human who had somehow become the center of his universe. Though I should warn you, I have no experience with parenthood and will likely make numerous mistakes. That's okay, Maya said, her voice muffled against his chest. Mom made lots of mistakes too when I was little. She said that's how you learn to be better. PIP-7 was still muttering about regulatory compliance and administrative procedures, but Vrex was no longer listening. His focus was entirely on the warm weight of the child in his arms and the strange new emotion he was beginning to recognize as unconditional love. There is still the matter of contacting your mother, he said eventually. I suspect she will have questions about this arrangement. Probably, Maya agreed. But she's really good at judging character. Once she sees that you make me happy and keep me safe, she'll be okay with it. She might even like you. What makes you so certain? Maya pulled back to look at him seriously. Because you're exactly the kind of person she taught me to become. You saw someone who needed help, and you helped them even when it was hard and scary and might get you in trouble. You chose kindness over cruelty, protection over power. Those are Mom's values. Vrex felt his chest tighten again, but this time it was accompanied by something he had never experienced. Pride. Not the hollow pride of victory or dominance, but the deep, warm satisfaction of living up to someone else's expectations. Someone whose opinion mattered more than his own reputation. Pip 7, he said firmly. Initiate adoption proceedings. And contact that information broker. I want to speak with Jessica Thompson as soon as possible. This is going to be a disaster, Pip 7 muttered. But there was something almost fond in the droid's mechanical voice. A beautiful, chaotic, regulation-defying disaster. 2 hours later, Vrex found himself staring at a small communication screen displaying the face of a woman who looked like an older version of Maya. Jessica Thompson had the same bright eyes, the same expressive face, and judging by her rapid-fire questions about quantum mechanics and stellar navigation, the same insatiable curiosity. So you're telling me, Jessica said after Vrex had explained the situation with as much tact as possible, that my daughter has been living with an alien apex predator for 3 weeks, has convinced him to completely change his career path, and now wants him to adopt her. That is an accurate summary, yes, Vrex admitted. Jessica was quiet for a long moment, studying his face through the screen. Can I talk to Maya? Mom! Maya's face appeared in the frame as she climbed onto Vrex's lap. I've missed you so much. Are you okay? Did you eat properly while I was gone? Did you remember to water the plants? Oh, and guess what? I learned 17 new alien languages and figured out how to calculate orbital decay and made friends with a sentient robot. And Vrex taught me about different star types and... Breathe, sweetheart. Jessica laughed, and Vrex could hear the relief in her voice. You look healthy, happy. Are you being treated well? The best, Maya said seriously. Vrex has been taking really good care of me. He's teaching me about alien cultures, and I'm teaching him about being family. It's been educational for both of us. Jessica's gaze shifted back to Vrex. And you want to adopt her? I do, Vrex said simply. I realize I am not what anyone would consider an ideal parent, but I love her, and I will protect her with my life. She has changed me in ways I did not think possible. He really has changed, Mom, Maya added. When I first met him, he was all scary and intimidating because that was his job. But now he's learning to be gentle instead of frightening. He's becoming who he was meant to be. Jessica studied them both for another long moment. Maya, can you give us a few minutes to talk privately? Sure. Maya hopped down and wandered toward her building block collection. I'll be right over here working on my interstellar communication array design. Once Maya was out of earshot, Jessica leaned closer to the screen. I'm going to ask you some very direct questions, and I need completely honest answers. I understand. Will you hurt her? Ever? For any reason? Never. I would destroy myself before allowing harm to come to her. Will you support her dreams and ambitions, even if they take her away from you? I will support whatever path makes her happy, regardless of personal cost. Will you love her even when she's difficult, stubborn, talks too much, asks uncomfortable questions, and challenges everything you believe? Vrex almost smiled at that. Especially then. Jessica nodded slowly. One more question. What do you get out of this? What's in it for you? Vrex considered his answer carefully. 3 weeks ago, I was empty. I had power, fear, respect, but no purpose beyond intimidation. Maya gave me something I did not know I was missing, the opportunity to be worthy of someone's trust. She made me want to be better than I was. And now I have a daughter who thinks I am capable of greatness, and I am determined not to disappoint her. Jessica was quiet for several minutes, and Vrex could see her evaluating everything she had observed. Finally, she spoke. "I have conditions." "Name them." "First, I want regular communication, video calls at least twice a week, more if possible. Second, I want her to continue her human education alongside whatever alien knowledge you're sharing. Third, if this arrangement ever stops working for her, if she's unhappy or wants to come home, you let her go, no questions asked. Agreed to all conditions. And fourth," Jessica's voice grew stern, "if you ever break her heart, if you ever let her down when she needs you most, if you ever make her feel like she's not worth your time and attention, I will find a way to hunt you down across the galaxy and make you regret it." Vrex felt a surge of respect for this human woman who was willing to threaten an apex predator for her child's welfare. "I would expect nothing less. You are an excellent mother." Jessica's expression softened. "She talks about you constantly, you know. Even in the few minutes we've been talking, I can see how much she adores you, and more importantly, I can see how much you adore her. She is extraordinary. Yes, she is. And she deserves someone who recognizes, that." Jessica took a deep breath. "Okay, I consent to the adoption, but I have one more request. Anything. I want to visit. I want to see this space station, meet her new family properly, and make sure she's really as happy as she seems." Vrex felt a moment of panic. Jessica visiting would mean explaining his career change to station management, dealing with immigration protocols, and probably fielding questions from other species about why he was suddenly hosting human tourists. It would be complicated, expensive, and potentially embarrassing. "I would be honored to host your visit," he said without hesitation. "Mom," Maya called from across the room, "can I show you my space elevator design? It's got improvements based on alien engineering principles." As Maya launched into an enthusiastic explanation of her latest project, holding up her building block construction for the camera, Vrex reflected on how completely his life had been transformed. 3 weeks ago, he had been a feared enforcer with no connections beyond professional obligation. Now he was a father, with all the joy and terror that entailed. "Vrex," Jessica said quietly while Maya continued her presentation, "thank you for taking care of her. I can see that she's not just safe, she's thriving." "She has taken care of me as much as I have taken care of her," Vrex replied. "Perhaps more." 6 months later, Vrex stood in the observation deck of what was now officially called Thompson Station, renamed after its youngest and most influential resident. Maya was beside him, pointing out various stellar phenomena to a group of visiting dignitaries who had come to study the station's revolutionary, new Rehabilitation Through Education program. His career change from intimidation specialist to director of interspecies cultural exchange had been surprisingly smooth, mostly because Maya's enthusiasm was genuinely infectious. What had started as one human child asking questions had evolved into a full educational program bringing together young beings from dozens of species to learn from each other. "And that's why," Maya was explaining to a fascinated group of young Altarians, "cross-species collaboration is so important. Different perspectives lead to better solutions. Like, Vrex taught me that Catharian engineering prioritizes durability over efficiency, while human engineering prioritizes innovation over stability. But if you combine both approaches," Vrex smiled as he listened to his daughter, share the lessons they had learned together. Jessica had visited 4 times now and was seriously considering relocating to the station permanently. She had formed an unlikely friendship with Pip-7, bonding over their shared experience of trying to manage Maya's boundless energy. "She's going to change the galaxy," Jessica had said during her last visit, watching Maya lead a group of mixed-species youngsters in building an elaborate space city. "Maybe she already has." Looking around at the transformed station, at the children from a dozen different worlds learning and playing together, at the former prisoners who had volunteered to become teachers and mentors, Vrex had to agree. His little human cub had tried to befriend a predator, and in doing so had created something unprecedented. A family that spanned species, a community built on curiosity rather than fear, and a future where the galaxy's most dangerous beings chose protection over predation. Maya looked up at him with those bright, curious eyes. "Dad, do you think we could build a playground on the station's outer ring? I have some ideas about zero-gravity recreation that might work really well for species with different mobility needs." Vrex chuckled, a sound that would have been unimaginable 6 months ago. "I think that sounds like an excellent project for us to work on together." Because that, he had learned, was what family did. They built things together, learned from each other, and created something better than either could achieve alone. And if anyone had told him 6 months ago that the most terrifying and wonderful thing that would ever happen to him would be a 7-year-old human calling him Dad, he would have thought they were insane. He would have been completely wrong,